All right, hello everybody. We'll give it a couple minutes for people to join, but thanks for joining for those of you who are already on. We've got a great attendance expected today, and if you're here to see how to build applications and products that take to market leveraging Blueprint, you're in the right place. So today we're going to talk about accelerating application development with Blueprint. And for those of you that Launchpad, if you're new to Launchpad, Launchpad's a platform for helping you build and launch multi-tenant B2B SaaS products faster, building with AI and also building out AI capabilities. And so what I'll do is give it a moment and then we'll get into it and we'll be off and running. So we'll just give it a second. And if you have questions throughout, feel free to submit those through the Q&A, and then we'll be addressing those at the end. Also stay tuned for a follow-up email from us that will have the link to the recording that you can share, and then also announce some of the upcoming webinars that we've got. We've got building great UIs for your applications, and then we have another co-hosted webinar that we're planning to do with AWS coming up, and we'll share those in email following up. With that, we'll get going. So today I'll just do quick introductions. We'll talk a bit about a new way to build SaaS applications and products, and then how the product lifecycle in terms of development works with Launchpad, and then really focusing on building with Blueprint and how you do that. And then once you've got your Blueprint built, how you can estimate the consumption and usage and your costs, how you can import that to start to basically finish off your app. And then we'll go into the next steps and then do a quick recap and get into the Q&A. So Sam, you ready to get going?
I am indeed.
All right, great. So you'll notice that there's three of us as hosts, but there's only two of us here. So I'm Jason Masciarelli. I lead go-to-market for Launchpad. I also run our corporate venture program. Frank, unfortunately, let us know just before the call that he was not feeling well, and that is a rare thing for Frank. He normally would be here no matter what. So we had to scramble a little bit, but I think Sam and I will take you through the journey today pretty smoothly. Sam Tremlett, thank you for joining me. I'm grateful to have you here. Sam is Director of Product Management and has been instrumental in helping us build out and bring Blueprint to the market. So great. For those of you on the call who aren't familiar with Launchpad, I'll just give a quick overview. And those of you who may know, this could give you, some new ideas as well. So Launchpad is really a platform that really is all about helping you to shift, how you think about product development and taking SaaS products and AI first products to market. It's really about having you focus more on your intellectual property, your unique value proposition, your differentiations, and your go-to-market, rather than infrastructure and services and full stack development. And so with that, Launchpad gives you really an enterprise-grade SaaS foundation. So it's multi-tenancy, just with the switch of a button. It has all the security certifications, it builds your database, it's cloud hosted, it's fully managed from a runtime perspective. And one of the things that we'll hone in on today is really the AI-powered development and low-code development that we've been known for many years as Pega. But GenAI Blueprint is really the focus of today's session. And we'll get into how you can quickly build out robust workflows, automations, build AI capabilities, integrations, reporting, and also do previews of your development. And then the final thing, which we'll cover in a subsequent webinar, is subscriber management. So a lot of organizations don't think about this when they first build a product, but subscriber management is hard, it's critical. It's what really makes it easy for you to build an application, take it to market, and then scale from your first to thousands of users and subscribers, and then see what's happening in terms of their usage, but also manage all of the identity and configuration with some self-service capabilities. So Blueprint. Blueprint is all about really transforming how you build software products, and primarily in the development phase. So as most of you know, building an enterprise-grade product to take to market takes a lot of time and resources. And about 70% of that time is really tied up in the stuff on the left, which is about writing those user stories, refining your idea, proving that idea, testing it in the market, getting feedback, creating the workflows, creating your database, designing the database, designing the UI, the user experience, the reports. And then, as you start to get ready to go to market, then you're integrating, you're testing, and then now you're deploying and driving adoption. And across this whole entire spectrum, Launchpad helps accelerate. But really, with Blueprint, what we're going to focus on today is Blueprint's really all about accelerating that time to market for new products by really collapsing the amount of time and effort for you to really do that design and upfront work, and then even test a prototype and preview it with customers to get their feedback. And so you can see a pretty dramatic change. So it basically doubles productivity of developers, but I would say that in some cases, we're even seeing it as high as 10x. So in terms of where it fits in, so Blueprint is really about going in common language, entering in, describing the application that you want to build or the feature. And then our platform basically will look at our best practices, our experience, looks at the web, looks at data that's out there and data that we have, and then essentially builds out your initial workflow, your stages and steps. And then with that, you can then collaborate with your team. You can share that, get feedback, iterate through that design, and then basically jumpstart your development. And so we'll talk about this whole journey today. So speaking of that journey, the Launchpad journey is really all about getting you to market fast, and then also helping you to get to product market fit very quickly as well, with as little resources and cost as possible. So you have an idea, you're excited, you want to take it to market. That's where you start, and then drop into Blueprint, draft that initial idea, spend some time to think it through, and then you'll get a preview. And then from there, you can really start to iterate and improve and refine that idea with Blueprint without having to get to code. And then with that, you can also start to estimate what the Launchpad unit consumption is going to be, to get a sense of what your costs might be for outcome-based pricing or platform cost pricing that you may want to build out. And then, basically take that Blueprint, and now you can import that into Launchpad Studio to basically get a bulk of your development and design done. And then now it's really about then focusing on your unique value prop, building out those integrations, really completing the app, and then taking your first product to market, and then iterating and refining that application as you get into market. The next thing is really about completing it. So utilizing Studio for building that final app, and then you can measure those units in your development environment through preview. And then when your app is in market, you can also see how many units you're consuming as clients are using your platform. And obviously you're deploying to subscribers and trying to scale up your solution in the market. So what we're going to do is get into a demo. And before we do that, I'm just going to tee it up. So basically, we've created a fictitious software company that is BMS Pro. They're looking to build a product that empowers patent management. BMS Pro, think of them as a back office business management software company that sells to a large volume of small and medium-sized businesses. They basically have seen demand for patent management as a solution for their existing clients. So one of the strategies that they're trying to do to grow is to basically launch a new product for existing clients to quickly monetize and add value and add kind of more impact to those clients with a new value proposition. And so really the challenge that they have is they can't wait. They need to hit the revenue targets very quickly within the same year. They don't want to have a long development timeline. They don't want to have long costs. They have limited resources. So they turn to Launchpad really to use as a platform to get them there faster and in a more cost-effective way to build their patent management SaaS solution. Great. So Sam, do you want to jump into the demo?
Yep, sounds great.
All right, thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Great, so hopefully everyone is looking at launchpad.io here, where you can actually find Blueprint. So you just go to launchpad.io/blueprint. And this is really where you're going to start your ideation. So I'm going to walk through a little bit of the capabilities that we have here and some of the ways to refine this Blueprint to match your exact use case. So I'm going to go ahead and start by creating a blueprint. Now, one of the first things you'll notice that we can do is upload any supporting documentation we might have. So if you have some documentation lying around already, which describes the application or the use case that you're going after, you can upload that here and get a summary of those documents as a starting point. Now, for the sake of today, we're going to do everything kind of fresh and from scratch so you can see the full power of this kind of expedition of the development journey. So like Jason mentioned, we're going to be focusing on BMS Pro today, who's traditionally worked in HR, but they're going to be looking at that patent processing use case. Now, I'm selecting from a list here. This list we see is just some suggested use cases. You can always type in your own, and feel free to spend some time on this functional description. So you can see we do give a little bit of guidance here around what we expect to be in here. Feel free to take a look at some of the examples and suggested use cases that we have, really to refine your process. Tell us about the outcome it is that you're looking to drive. And this really helps the Blueprint engine, which we'll see in just a moment, narrow down on a starting point for you. So like I mentioned, we're going to be looking at BMS Pro today, so I'll just go ahead and select them. We do support a wide variety of languages, and if your particular use case has some regional specific details, like, if this is in the EU, for example, and we need to make sure we're considering some EU regulations, you can always specify a location as well. But for the sake of today, we'll go ahead and say we're good with that patent processing use case, and we'll go ahead. Blueprint Engine right now is analyzing all of the content, have we provided documents or that functional description we were looking at, to come up with a starting point for us. And the Blueprint starting point should be a very good step in the right direction. And now it's time for me to provide my own specifics that match my organization, my use case. So here we can see a list of suggested workflows, which we call case types in Pega. We have a patent submission, patent renewal, and patent dispute. Of course, at any time, I can go ahead and edit one of these, delete ones I don't like. I can even upload more specific supporting content, like if I have a BPMN, which is a business process management notation file that describes this process, I can drop that in here to provide more context. I can always ask the AI to generate more or just manually add more if I know I have a specific use case I want to get after. When we go over to the workflow details, this is where we start to get into kind of the body of the application. What are the different stages and steps that we need to accomplish as a part of, for example, patent submission in order to accomplish this outcome? And within here, there's a lot of different data. So first things first, we see our life cycle that's down here. We break these up into major milestones, which we call stages. And then within each stage, we have the steps. These are the individual things that need to be accomplished to achieve that specific milestone. And there's a variety of steps here. Again, I can edit any of the different things that I might want to do. And you're seeing the power of the Launchpad platform right here, some of the different capabilities that we have. And I can start to provide more details. So if I look at, for example, capturing the information about this particular patent submission, I can see I have things like, the title of the invention, what's the statement we're trying to get after, who are the different people that should be on this patent, and some other information. I can mark them as required and give some more details if I want. Additionally, we also generate a data model. And this is really about what are the different pieces of information that you're going to need to capture throughout the patent submission process. And then I can go to my lifecycle and specify at which point in the lifecycle I'll capture each one. And this is also allows us to build relationships between the different objects within our system. So here we can see that we have a very basic relationship to start. Again, this is just what the Blueprint engine started us with. We can put our own spin on this, but we can see we have things like a list of inventor profiles, maybe some source code that holds the invention, industries, products, et cetera. And we can view that relationship, work with our stakeholders and interested parties to kind of perfect exactly how we envision this to go. Moving on, we can look at our data and integrations. And a common theme you'll see throughout all of this is that, again, we have these ability to upload any existing documentation, for example, an open API specification or a SQL file or DDL that might describe some of the databases you're already using, and have Blueprint analyze those and put in your specific data objects, your specific schema that exist within the use case you're going after. Now, each one of these data objects also has its own data model. So we can see things like, for the inventor profile, this is, the name of the person, the department, email, etc. So we can get down to that level of specificity on the objects themselves. Now, these objects also, right now, they're all a part of Pega's local system of record. But let's imagine now that we are integrating to something external as a part of this application. So I'll just throw in SAP, for example. I can add a new system of record here. And maybe what I want to do is go back and say, what the list of industries that we tend to work in, that's stored in SAP. We'll just go ahead and make that switch. And I can start to tie together now external systems of record, correlate them to my specific data objects, and start to build, again, a more specific use case for my app, so that when I'm meeting with my stakeholders and meeting with the different interested parties in this application, we can look at something that better represents the use case we are actually going to build. And for example, now, if I go back to my workflow details and look at that relationship view that we were just looking at, now we can see that that industry has kind of been pulled under a new system of record. So again, as we're ideating on this, as we're spending, maybe a day or two, a week to get our use case perfectly correct within Blueprint, we can kind of use the tools that are available in here as we go. Now, you probably noticed you can bounce around these steps that we have at the top. This, of course, for those who are new to Launchpad, we try to provide a recommended steps of how we tend to think of things, but you can bounce around if you want to work on your data first and then your life cycle, etc. The final thing we have within Blueprint is our personas. This is the who that's going to be interacting with your application. And there's a couple of things you can do here. First, obviously, same thing we saw with data and cases. We can, of course, curate this list if some of these aren't correct and we want to delete some, add more, whatever the case might be, we can do that. But the other thing we can start to do is also define the access, what each one of these personas should have access to from the other things we've defined. So we just saw maybe the inventor has access to the patent submission and patent renewal, but not the dispute. We can say things like they can create them, but maybe they can't edit them after they've been created, something along those lines. And we can start to get the very high level descriptions of what exactly they have access to throughout the application. We can do the same thing with data, and we can also provide some very high level on which particular channels, which we'll talk about in just a moment, they may have access to. So I'll go ahead and save this. Now, you've probably noticed this little button at the bottom, Preview My App. So I'm going to go ahead and click this. And one of the great things that Blueprint does is actually all of that configuration we did in the case types, the work, the life cycle, the data, the personas leading up to that, we can now preview that to see what this will look like when we actually generate this Launchpad application. And so here we go. Here's the patent submission case type that we just saw. We see the workflow on the top here that we defined as a part of that. And I can actually go in and start to fill out what this might look like. Now, we provide synthetic data for you. So this is just generated data so that, again, as you're having those conversations with stakeholders agreeing on your use case, you're getting something that looks good and has data in there for you at least to talk about. And I can start to progress this as I go on, right? So as I walk through that life cycle, and you can see me cleaning it up, or excuse me, progressing on the top here as I go ahead and progress through each of these steps within the life cycle. And this also just helps you talk about some of the things that we have within kind of the core case management that we offer as a part of Launchpad. Things like being able to upload attachments, having followers. Pulse is our collaboration tool. So being able to, collaborate on this certain patent submission and have kind of a back and forth, as well as being able to track all of the history of this particular case type as we go through each of them. And the great thing is I can actually see what this will look like across different channels. So for example, this is what it might look like in a mobile channel, so that as we're talking about what's required for this application, we can have a nice back and forth and get into the specifics of what exactly this will look like. Now, again, this is, I'm going through this quickly here. We only have, limited time today. But really, we expect people to spend some time here to perfect their use case. So some of the different things I could do, for example, we saw earlier how I can edit case types. One of the nice things I can do is I can actually start to provide more context here and say, make this specific to Europe, something like that, and actually save and have AI do another pass at that. I'm not going to do that right now, but just to kind of call it example. And let's say, for example, I want to delete the invention source off of this first screen. I decide, that's not actually something we need to do right away. We can capture it in a later step, and I'll just go ahead and click save there. What I can do now is, because I've made some changes to this lifecycle, I can hop right back into that preview and say, is this actually the change that we wanted to make? So I go here, I can see that field now has been removed. And so as we're having that back and forth with our stakeholders, I can kind of use this preview as level setting, right? That we can go through each one of these things and kind of talk about the different things and how we expect it to behave. So the question then becomes, what do we do with this blueprint once we have, excuse me, perfected this? So there's a couple different things, and I will download the blueprint in just a minute and show some of the other tools that we have that are going to help further that acceleration that Jason was mentioning. But I do want to mention that this doesn't have to be a kind of a solo effort for the individuals here. So, for example, I can go ahead and invite Jason as an editor or a viewer. Editor gives him the access to make all the changes you just saw me make. Viewer gives him this blueprint in read-only view. And so you can build out your team here of collaborators if you want to work on this with a group of people over time. And we do also track the history of all the things that are happening in here. So you can see, obviously, I just added Jason as an editor and some of the changes that we made throughout the process of the last few minutes here. So we do track those changes. You can work collaboratively. You heard me also mention about Pulse on the individual preview that we saw. We also have that available within Blueprint. So if I wanted to have a conversation, write Jason a message to go check out the changes I just made, I, of course, could do that within Blueprint itself. But let's go ahead and actually download this Blueprint. And I'm going to start by showing some of the interesting things we can do to start to get a feel for what the impact of the application we just made was. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the Launchpad Estimator here, and I'm just going to upload the blueprint that we just did together. And what this is going to do is, within Launchpad, we tend to track the amount of usage that your application is getting. And so I can upload the actual use case from my blueprint that we just perfected and see, based on the different, estimates, whether we expect very high usage, medium, whatever it might be, what the estimates on that actual blueprint units, or excuse me, Launchpad units will look like. And so I can see, across the different use cases. And obviously, as I start to change my blueprint and download new versions, I can come back here and see this update live. Next, I will go and let's actually bring this into Launchpad now and see how much we get right out of the box. So to start, I'm going to come here, and you can just go to the new application and drop in that same blueprint file we just used in the Launchpad Estimator, and you can see it grabs my use case. Here are the different case types that we have, the data types, personas, etc. I can do a little bit of configuration if I decide maybe I just want to start with one case type or something along those lines. But for the sake of this, I'll go ahead and just say, let's just go ahead and build this all from scratch. Now, this application generation process from the blueprint usually takes a few minutes, so we don't have to sit here and wait. I actually generated it ahead of time, and so here we are. So we're in this application that got generated from the blueprint, and right off the bat, you're going to see that, for example, our case types patent submission is here. And once we're inside the Launchpad application, I see the same configuration that we specified on our blueprint, and I can start to provide a next level of detail. So for example, we have things like SLAs, if we want to track how long it takes someone to do this and send maybe an escalation action or message if they pass a certain goal or deadline, we can do that. And there's that kind of next level of configurations to continue perfecting your use case as it is. But even if I decide to do none of that and I just say, you know what, I just want to see right out of the box, what did I get from doing that blueprint and accelerating my development here? I get a pretty good starting point. So clicking preview here, we're just generating the app from the content. So here we go. I have my BMS patent submission here, and let's just go ahead and see what one of these patent submission looks like. Again, I see some of that synthetic data that we saw for the inventor profiles. Hopefully folks remember these were the 4 fields we were capturing on the first step of that life cycle. So I'll just say, we'll say blueprints, the invention, accelerate app development. I'll select Bill and Penny, and we'll say today is the date. And again, this is the beauty of, provide something in here. This is the beauty of leveraging a platform like Launchpad. Again, all of those things you saw kind of in the preview, I'm now seeing reflected in my actual application, so that as I iterate and make more changes, that includes things like the details, right? The pulse that we talked about, any of the case history, including things like attachments and followers. So you kind of see how working on with that preview, getting to a point where you're happy with your stakeholders and interested parties, and then taking that blueprint, generating the application to give you a huge jump start on your journey. And with that, I will throw it back over to Jason.
Awesome. That was great, Sam. Thank you for taking us through all of that. And we'll move into the wrap up and then the Q&A. So yeah, so we had our example of BMS Pro as a software company looking to build a new product. I think that was awesome. We got to see, how quickly you could, essentially, prototype and design that product, and then estimate how much that's going to cost, and then move that into the full development experience in Launchpad to start to finish up your app. And so really, the next piece here is, getting ready to go to market, right? And so you have to obviously finish your application. This is where kind of your secret sauce or your IP, as we say, and your special experience comes into play. So you're going to finish up your app development. You're going to create dashboards, insights. You're going to really refine it. You're going to refine your UI. Fine tune the template and design so it meets your colors and logos and color schemes. You're going to hook up integrations. And we've recently launched our boosters, which basically have pre-built integrations for you as developers to quickly integrate. So we've got things like Twilio and WhatsApp and many others, and there are more coming that just are quick ways for you to kind of add in functionality that you can then push out to your subscribers. And then you want to kind of refine that business logic, allow for subscribers to configure their applications, finalize the security, and then take your MVP to market. And then once you're in market, one of the big things that, again, folks don't think about is how hard it is to actually, get product market fit, validation, and iterate. And one of the things that Launchpad's great at is being able to help you, quickly respond to those changes and feedbacks from customers and build out new capabilities and start to refine and really get to that product market fit so you can start to scale your business. Great. So we'll wrap up, and I think essentially, hopefully you've seen how this is a new way to build SaaS applications that are enterprise grade applications. We took you through the full life cycle for how you build with Launchpad, really leveraging Blueprint as your starting point, and then we went through creating that blueprint to develop a new app. You can also do that to build and prototype new features and functionality. We also have some of our software companies that are providers that are basically using this to also prototype out and say, hey, I've got an existing app. Let me go re-platform that because I've got a lot of tech debt, to start to see what that would take to rebuild and what it would cost using the estimator, which we did in this example today. If you're interested in finding out more about the cost to run a Launchpad application or getting full access to build and take your apps to market, go to our website. I encourage you to sign up for free. You'll get access to Blueprint. You'll get access to the Unit Estimator. And then there's also a contact sales button there to reach myself and my team. And we're happy to get engaged, help you, basically get successful, get the most out of Launchpad, drive the greatest impact for your clients, and really start to build a successful, thriving business leveraging our platform. And so with that, we'll get into questions. And Lena, I think you've got some questions that people have submitted. So let's see what folks are looking for help on.
Yep. Yep. I think you just touched on one of them, but I'll say it here. How to get access to Launchpad.
Great question. So we've actually just refined this a bit. And so we have essentially the free edition is easy. Anyone can sign up for it. And that gives you full access to what you've seen here today, which is Blueprint. It also gives you full access to the unit estimator to start to estimate the consumption and usage. And then you'll be able to see our pricing online, which shows you how many units per subscription you get. So you can start to get to some specifics about what processing, let's say a specific business outcome, like a patent search or a dispute might cost. And so, yeah, it's pretty easy. And if you have questions and you have trouble, just contact sales from our website.
Excellent. Another one, you just demoed app creation in minutes. Can I really get a functioning app that fast, or did I miss something?
Absolutely. You can get a preview, which is very valuable, and you can start to play with that preview and then refine it, which often takes weeks and months to get to that point. And then as you saw Sam import that, then you've got either a little bit of work that you could do to get to your MVP, but then obviously you're going to continuously build and enhance that application using the full development experience on Launchpad.
Excellent. And Fox, I invite you to use Q&A. I'm getting some questions anonymously, but if you use Q&A, it will make it a little bit easier to manage and make sure we don't miss any questions. Sam, I think this one would be for you. Is it possible to incorporate case instantiation from emails using this?
Yeah, so when we're in Blueprint, we don't have a way to specify that these things can be instantiated from cases, but that is a capability that the product does support. But right now there's no way to represent that in Blueprint.
Great. If you have any follow-up questions after the webinar, please email us and we'll follow up. Next one, I'm fairly new to Pega. How do you control fine-grained pixel perfect placement of the components of a page?
Yeah, I can probably take that one. And, I also see another question around Constellation that's related. So, we provide a very opinionated design system. So our Constellation design system is, from our experience over the years, making sure that out of the box, we're providing a really great application. There's a bunch of things that you can do within there. So from Blueprint into Launchpad, to answer one of the questions I saw, we always go with Constellation. That is our latest best practice. And Constellation comes with a bunch of out-of-the-box components. You can also create custom DX components for things which are basically just React components for things that differentiate your application. So, if you have something like a fingerprint scanner or something like that, that might be very custom to your use case. You can create, a custom component. And then additionally, I didn't go super in depth on it, but, we do have what we like to call view authoring, which is a way to manipulate what you see on the screen. So if I wanted to change things from, for example, like one column layouts to two column layouts, or rearrange the order of the fields, mark things as required, even build things like visibility conditions. So, I only want this field to show up if I check this box earlier in the form, things like that. All of that you have configuration access to once you're inside Launchpad.
Yeah. And I'd add, Sam, also that if someone wants to build their own custom UI, they can do that. Even in Blueprint, as you built that, there's a way to actually access the DX API and see the API that's been built based on the app that you've designed. That does take more work, but you can have that kind of pixel perfect app exactly how you want to have it look. But it's a trade-off in terms of work and effort. And so we typically suggest that people start with our UI. That gets them to market fast. And then if they want to add custom components or have specific things that are more of a consumer-oriented interface, they can certainly build that or embed it into an existing app that they have.
Excellent. And Jason, mentioned earlier, UI, UX, our next webinar. In the next 2 weeks, we will announce the date for that. We'll be building a great UI, so we hope to see you there. You'll get lots of tips and tricks and things we've been working on to make it easier for you.
Absolutely.
Jason, Blueprint, is it only for a new app build? Do we have any option to use it for existing app enhancements?
So yes, we have providers that have started to use Blueprint to prototype out kind of a new feature or enhancement, and then that helps them accelerate kind of their build within Launchpad. Sam, I don't know if you want to add into that at all, but some of the trade-offs of that.
Yeah, it can be really used for both. Obviously, if you're starting from scratch, the boost you're going to get is far greater. But we do have the ability, you saw the document upload and things like that, to take the state of an existing app if you wanted to, for example, add a new workflow and use Blueprint to ideate and fine tune that. It can certainly be used for both.
Great.
Excellent. How does it handle data privacy or compliance requirements when building data models?
Yeah, I can answer that. So first of all, if you want to dive deeper into the security, if you just go to pega.com/blueprint/data security, we have a whole page that talks about the different things we do to protect your IP and the things that you're putting into Blueprint. We do have we partner with AWS. We do use their encryption services to encrypt all of this data at rest, along with a bunch of other things to help make sure that the data you put into Blueprint stays your own. Again, I would advise everyone to go check out that page if you want to dive deep into the exact mechanics of what we're doing to do that.
Yeah, and then I'd add, maybe the person that was asking may also be thinking about production as well. So when you move this into the full Launchpad development runtime experience, it's highly secure and it's multi-tenant natively. So we run and manage the runtime. When you provision a subscriber, we provision tenant specific to them. We spin up their database and all of their services, and only that client has access to it. We don't have access to the data. You as a software developer do not have access to the data unless the client actually grants you access, or if it's part of the design that you've implemented as part of your app design. Do we have other questions, Lena?
Yep, we do. Questions keep coming in.
Great.
Are there notable case studies of companies who successfully launched production apps using Blueprint?
Yes. So one of the things that, so Sam works on both sides of the business. So we've got the enterprise business with Pega Infinity, and then Launchpad is focused on software companies. So I would say on the Infinity side, we've got lots of them. On the Launchpad side, we actually have a very, good kind of established list of companies that are building and taking products to market. So we've got about, probably a handful of case studies that are on the site. If you go to our showcase, you can see some of those. You go to our blog, you can also see some of those stories and interviews with clients.
Excellent. Jason, how is consumption measured? Number of logins, session duration?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So traditionally, if you're doing full stack development on a cloud, you would have 5, 10, 20 different services that you were trying to orchestrate and connect to build your application and take it to market. So you would need to actually fully build out your app. There's some estimator tools that are out there, but it's very hard to understand all of your costs. What's great about Launchpad is that before you even start building your product within Blueprint, you could estimate that, see how many units that process flow costs, and then based on that, you can basically look at your subscription plan, and one of our subscription plans is $900 a month, which includes 5 million units per month. And so you can quickly do some math and understand what your costs are. And so you'll quickly see that it's probably cents to run a specific end-to-end process flow. And today you hear a lot of people talking about outcome-based pricing. So let's say in that patent example, for running that end-to-end patent process, you'd be able to know exactly how much that costs you, and then you could determine how you want to price that in the market. And we have, no influence on how you price. So it's all up to you in terms of how you price. We just give you clarity on what your costs are, and essentially that's your cost of goods sold. And then you can price however you want to go to market, if it's by outcome or by platform or by user. And then just to get back to kind of the other piece of your question, Lena, a long-winded answer, is it's unlimited number of subscribers, it's unlimited number of users. So we don't care how many users or subscribers or organizations that you've got signed up. It's all based on reads and writes of data, which is what drives the units.
Thank you, Jason. Can a Launchpad application only be hosted on Pega Cloud?
Yes. So we have, as you saw, the development environment, the subscriber management, and then the runtime. And so we run and manage that entire platform. And that's one of the huge value propositions that you get, is really the reduction in development time, and then also in cloud ops and security. So again, you can really focus on your IP and your go-to-market. But yes, at this point, it's only hosted and managed by us. We're multi-geography and expanding to different geographies as we see demand.
Excellent. Are all the channels from the Blueprint preview available in Launchpad?
So all the channels, Sam, do you want to take that, or you want me to take that?
Yeah, I can take that.
Right.
I'll say most of the channels in the Blueprint preview are available. And for example, the agentic conversation channel, which you'll see in the Blueprint preview, is not yet available in Launchpad, but it is something we're working on.
Yeah, and it's actually right around the corner. It's coming very soon. Yes.
Okay. What about fine-tuning data and relational aspects of the data? Where and how is that completed? Also implementing reporting aspects from your app from the data.
Yeah, I can take that one. So, obviously, webinar like this, we're going through it fairly quickly. But for example, I did flash up very quickly the ability to import open API specifications, or DDLs. If you were to import an open API specification, which is a very common industry practice, on import, we do try to actually generate more of the integration, as much of it as we possibly can. Right now, there's of course some limitations. If that's a authenticated endpoint, we obviously can't make the full connection. So we'll build as much of it as we can. And additionally, in the actual schema of those individual data objects we saw, you can of course create scalar fields like we saw in the example I gave, but you can also build those other relationships. So you can define, case relationships, data relationships back and forth as you need. So you can build out a very robust data model there. I didn't in the example we showed for the sake of time, but those are the sort of fine-tuning things that we see people do, while they're iterating on their blueprint.
One other thing I want to highlight, Sam, is that the data, while it natively is building the database and it assumes that the data is going to be stored within Launchpad in our runtime, you can also have external data sources and fields that reference external data sources. So you don't need to have all the data running within our environment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great.
Excellent. Sam, another pretty technical questions. Can I import any DX component or even a case type build in platform to Launchpad via rule set import? And how Launchpad is different?
Yeah, it sounds like maybe a question from someone who's familiar with Infinity, our enterprise solution. So a bit different. There are ways to get DX components easily into Launchpad. We wouldn't use it. The rule set mechanism that you mentioned is an Infinity thing. We wouldn't do it that way, but there are ways to get. Again, they're basically just React code. So if you have them laying around, you're looking to build something, a custom component into Launchpad, there is a way to leverage the code you've already written and get that into Launchpad. Again, we wouldn't necessarily do that through the the Infinity way of doing things, kind of separate things.
And just to highlight, since we're on that, is that Launchpad is a completely new architecture from the ground up and platform that was purpose-built for software companies. So it is a very different platform, but what we've done is the expertise and what we're really good at is what we've built into it. So the design environment and the concepts around workflow and automation is the same when you go into the authoring experience, but the underlying architecture is different. So that's why you don't have that kind of ability to move rule sets over. But you get a lot of advantages and other ways that you can execute some of those same features and capabilities.
Excellent. Okay, let me pick another question. That's when I put my blueprint into the estimator, what is the number of units telling me?
So based on our experience working with many different applications and understanding how units are consumed and how we project them, the estimator is basically looking at your usage pattern. It's looking at the case and really your workflow and your application. And then based on that, it's modeling out and estimating what the actual usage is going to be based on reads and writes, based on certain levels of usage. So what that means is a very simple flow doesn't use many units. If you have a very, very complex workflow that has lots of stages and steps, and that's probably going to consume more units. And then likely if you have a large user base and you've got users that are using it continuously every day, that's going to be higher as well. So again, it's driven off of complexity and usage.
Thanks, Jason. Is there anything to export in Pega to help with an existing app enhancement? For example, something that shows the current state of the app.
Um,
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, in Launchpad specifically, we do have some things, probably something that we can work on to improve. But there are a few ways you can do it, and one of the things I'll say is Blueprint does also ingest things like images and very shortly videos as well. So one of the things we've seen people do with good success is go into their app, take screenshots of their existing technology, and mind you, this doesn't have to be an existing Pega technology. This can be other technologies as well, and just kind of take screenshots, describe what the app does, and can use that as a starting point within Blueprint as well.
Excellent. Sam, can I import any DX component or even a case type build in platform to Launchpad? I think I asked.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
think.
Yeah. Apologies. I have quite a bunch here. We have seen the blueprint-based apps based on common data model for sales domain. Are we mandating CDM to other domains also in near future?
Mandating, definitely not. I think we will certainly make some of the elements that are there available in Blueprint. So if you wanted to pull out, common industry data objects, you could do that, say for insurance, healthcare, whatever you might be working on. But certainly in the Launchpad world, not mandating that anything around common data model.
Yeah. I'd say folks should think of Launchpad as a blank slate, that they're leveraging the platform to really build whatever they want to build and how they want to build that. And Blueprint's a great way to kind of accelerate that process.
Excellent. Okay, I think we can do like 2 more questions probably, and I'll take one kind of deeper with Infinity knowledge and one from a newer person. Does Blueprint support or extend Pega framework feature? Example, if I want to build app on Smart Claim Engine framework, how does Blueprint work?
No, so we don't use the Infinity frameworks. And I don't know if you want to talk more about that, Sam.
Yeah, so to Jason's point, when you get into Launchpad, you won't find smart claims for example, in the question you asked. That being said, Blueprint is aware of like the best practices and learnings we have from those frameworks. So you'll definitely see us put those best practices while you're blueprinting into your blueprinted app. But as you take that blueprint and turn it into a working Launchpad application, it'll be different from Infinity, where you're not built on top of like an offering like Smart Claims.
Yeah.
Excellent. So let's finish with this question. Can I go from Blueprint to an actual multi-tenant application, or is it more like a preview?
So Blueprint's giving you a preview. Once you import it, you're really just finishing it off. It really obviously depends on what you're looking to build. And if you're looking to build lots of advanced capability, you can certainly do that. But if you want to build an MVP that is very much aligned with the blueprint and get that to market quickly, like something like what we just saw with the patent application, you can very quickly, I would say, in a matter of hours or days, basically polish up and finish that app. And then taking it to your client is basically simply publishing it, going into the subscriber management, putting the email in for your subscriber, sends them an email, and then within probably a minute or two, essentially the client can log in and they get full access to the application, and they're using it as a single tenant app, and then you can roll it out to n number of clients and users. And we handle all the scaling services and multi-tenancy and security. Great. So that was awesome. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Lena, for helping us get through this. And we hope that Frank is feeling better. I'm glad we were able to cover it. And thanks everybody for joining us. Excited to get you folks, playing with Blueprint in the context of application product development, and then really seeing how those applications turn into production apps. Again, encourage you to go to our website, sign up for the free edition, start to play with it, estimate what the cost is going to be, and then when you're ready to start to really finish up that app and take it to market, sign up for a subscription, and we'll be there to help you. Thanks so much, and have a great day.